Greetings and salutations, Scribblers. We're back with more details about beta reading. This time, we are going to tackle what to do when your feedback is returned to you. Last time, we chatted about the prep work that you should do before sending your manuscript over to beta readers. So hopefully you've done all those things and you're going to be getting some fantastic feedback. So we're going to talk about 7 ways that you can really make receiving feedback more meaningful and how to process different aspects of that. So the first one is to breathe. Okay, this isn't actually the first one because hopefully you're already breathing, but it's important to actively breathe and give your body a chance to reset and be calm as you read through an edit letter or inline comments. Getting feedback can cause anxiety. It can be very difficult to hear feedback about something that you've poured your heart and soul into. So make sure that you pause and do some deep breaths as needed. The real first thing to do is to make sure that you have uninterrupted time to look through that feedback. I always try to give myself at least an hour for that first initial read through to think about what my betas are telling me, and reading feedback is going to produce all sorts of emotions from giddiness to anger to frustration, disappointment. These are all really valid emotions. So you need to let yourself feel them. You need to process those moments. But you want to try not to allow yourself to dwell there. So it's very possible that you're going to feel several, if not all of them, from one single person's feedback. You never know kind of what you're going to get until it happens. But you should definitely be prepared for those things. And this is why it's important to just have that uninterrupted time. Don't get distracted by your phone. Don't get distracted by like anything on the outside. Like maybe take yourself to a coffee shop, get yourself your favorite drink and your favorite pastry, sit down, and see what happens, right? Read through all that feedback. Learning to separate yourself from the writing is, I think, one of the best pieces of advice that I could give to writers who are like kind of just entering into this field, or even long-term writers, right? Because you're giving somebody your manuscript and you're asking them to nitpick your words and to indicate where you can improve. So you try not to let yourself get upset when they do that. And that's so hard because we all want to be told our book is perfect, 5 out of 5 stars, no notes. But none of us can do that. It's not possible. Even the biggest authors out there who consistently win awards are going through the beta process and getting feedback. So the books on the shelf at the store all went through these. And they have several drafts likely. And that's what the process is. And I think so often we get caught up in comparing our first, second, or third drafts to that final polished, published manuscript that's out in the stores. And we can't do that to ourselves. So we have to realize every single one of those books we see and all these books that we read are going through the same processes that we're doing. So it's not unusual. And it doesn't mean you're a bad reader if you get feedback that's asking you to improve, because that's exactly what you want, right? This actually means just the opposite. You're seeking outside perspectives in order to level up your writing. That means you're a good writer because you're looking to improve, and that you're open to feedback. That's another sign of a good writer. If you just kind of like write in a bubble and you don't allow yourself to get that outside objective feedback, you're going to miss out on a lot of things. So you definitely want to be doing those things. All right. So you've given yourself time to read the feedback. Now you have to process it. You're going to agree with some of it, and other places you may strongly disagree. So the things that we agree with are always easier to process, right? Maybe you had them read specifically for world building elements that needed fleshed out, and they noted 3 different places that they thought would really help the story. Fantastic. You're going to take that action without much pushback from your brain, right? You're like, oh yeah, this was really smart. I can do this. But the things that you don't agree with, you might have to have a stern talk with your brain every now and then to even consider it as something that you should address in your revision. For me, when I get feedback that I disagree with, I try to give myself a moment to I always start with giving it the wonky eye, like, what is this? Did they even read the book I gave them? But then I start to consider it and I try to get to the root of the problem. But it's like, this is my whole processing thing. Like, because initially we always have that moment of like, this isn't right. This has to be wrong. But if we take a second and allow ourselves to look at it more objectively, we can maybe start to see what it is that the reader wasn't quite meshing with, why they were bumping up against it. So whatever it is, it stood out to my reader. So it's something I need to give attention to in some way. Sometimes it's as simple as the solution that they propose to the issue isn't right. Sometimes I have to just come up with another one. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I totally get it now. I agree. Sometimes it's more complicated. And sometimes it's just a matter of me getting to the point of realizing, wow, they were really right. And I wish I had listened to this feedback sooner instead of taking a month to like not do it. So you never know what's going to happen. All right. So that tip of processing through and thinking about why that feedback is being given to you really ties into my next tip for working through beta reader feedback. And that's knowing who you're getting feedback from. So I talked in the last video for the preparation that you should think about who it is that you want to get your feedback from. What do they write? What do they read? What's their style? All those different things. So knowing that will help you to process the feedback that you receive. I have gotten feedback from readers who really wanted me to increase the amount of romance elements in my books, something that I personally don't want to do because that's not how I envision the story. It's not a focus for me, but these beta readers are usually, they usually read and write romantasy and romance. So it totally makes sense that that's kind of where some of their feedback would come in, because that for them is a really key element and they wanted to see more of it. So what I do with that then, understanding where their perspective is coming in and why they might have given me that feedback. Now I can go in and kind of like find a compromise of some sort and say, okay, this is something that probably does need to be addressed in some way. How do I do that, but still stay true to my vision of the book with not going overboard in my consideration, in my version of what the romance elements are. So I might try to make them more solid, or a couple like stand out a little bit more, or maybe add one small thing. Because I do want my book to appeal to a wide variety of readers. And so doing those things strengthens my manuscript without losing my vision. So it's just a matter of really processing what that feedback is telling me, why that person might be saying. There's so much critical thinking going on here. So much like analysis. It's a lot. Like you've really got to think. So getting feedback from other writers in niches where I'm not as prevalent in my writing is a really great way to add layers to my story and to make it have that wider appeal, right? So hopefully the same thing will be true for you. So get those feedback elements from readers and writers who are maybe a different genre than you, and see what they say, because those are always places where you'll be able to build in and add more layers into your story. And sometimes even after all of that, after you've processed it, after you've thought about where that person is coming from and what their experience with writing and reading is, you're still going to give that feedback the side eye and do your own thing anyways. And you just completely ignore it. And that's okay, because you are the author and you get the final say in how the story goes. So sometimes it will happen. I've had so many times where I've gotten feedback and I'm like, no, that is literally, I think, the worst idea I have ever heard. And it was just because that their vision of the story wasn't meshing with what my vision was. And I did nothing with it. I just ignored it. I appreciated other things they said, but in like that one element, I was just like, no, absolutely not. Hard pass. So all that to say that whoever is giving you feedback and whatever they're reading and they're writing is going to help you better understand what their feedback is. All right. So if you still aren't sure what the feedback means that they have given you, or why they phrased it the way that they did, now you need to ask. So this is a really important part of that process, right? And understanding why they gave the feedback that they did. So keep a running list of questions that you have for them. Some might be resolved as you move through your inline comments, or once you've had a think and 2 days later, you're like, oh yeah, you know what? I totally understand why they wanted me to flip these two scenes around. And they're right. This one should come first and then this one will come second. But either way, hopefully you're able to email or chat with your beta reader and ask your questions and have some brainstorming sessions with them, because that's the perfect time for it. They have read your work and you can say, well, I don't quite understand. What did you mean with this comment or this idea? You know, you really noticed that this character was this. Why? Because that wasn't what I was going for. And then they can help you figure out how to adjust that and how to revise it so you can get what you are going for. I personally love when I get to do an in-person chat with my readers. It really helps me just home in on what specifically I want to revise. Emails are great, especially if you have long distance beta readers. But if you ever have the chance to sit down over a cup of coffee or some pancakes and just talk it out, it's so much fun. And I really, really like it. I always feel like I'm so energized after having those discussions with my beta readers, and I get really excited to go in and do revisions. All right. So we've talked about considering the feedback that you disagree with. Another element of this is one's really important is sometimes people are going to inform you that you've written something disrespectful or harmful in your book. So you're welcome to get like a second opinion if you'd like, but this is your beta reader giving you information that is invaluable, right? For example, this recently happened to me. A beta reader read my book and pointed out a description that could be misconstrued as harmful. I had never intended it that way, but my wonderful beta reader clocked it, and they were just like, here's why this isn't good. You should change it. So I went in and I immediately revised it, like no questions asked. This book has gone through 4 major revisions and has had multiple beta rounds. And this was the first person who noticed and said something about this. So sometimes things get missed or things get overlooked. So this is why it's nice to have that like broad base of people who are beta reading for you, because everyone's going to pick up something different. And I'm eternally grateful that this beta reader did that, because I learned something and I will never make that error again. And I do want my writing to be respectful, and I don't want it to harm anybody. So having beta readers that will call you out when you've done something harmful, even when it's unintentional, is so, so valuable. Those are the people that you really want on your side. Having a beta point out something like that is better than having a reader point it out once you're published, or anything like that. You want to have those things in there. It can also be a sign that maybe you should be hiring a sensitivity reader, depending on how your story is constructed or what the subject matter is. That might always be a really good thing to do. And if you have more than one beta reader, clock something and be like, you cannot do this. This is really disrespectful. This is really harmful. Take that feedback very seriously, because you want to grow your audience as an author. And that means doing your due diligence and making sure that you aren't harming marginalized communities. The Scribblers Den has a really great set of resources that are free. I'm going to link them down below, that talks about cultural appropriation and things like that, and how to be as respectable as possible when you're dealing with cultures and experiences that are not your own when you're writing. So please check that out down below. It's a great, great resource, like I said. All right, so now you've read your feedback. You're breathing still, I hope. Are we all still breathing? Okay. You've processed it. You've got your list of questions ready, and you're just raring to go as far as getting to your revisions. But I'm going to ask you to hold up. I have 2 more things for you to do. So first, if you haven't already done it, tell your beta reader thank you. Even if you disagreed with most of their feedback, they took the time to read and share their thoughts. Beta reading is a lot of work. It's a big time commitment. So you want to make sure that you thank them. Most people trade beta reads. So if you haven't already read for them, do offer to read in the future, and make sure that you read with a clean slate. If you didn't find their feedback helpful, don't go in with the intent to do the same thing to them. Be genuine in your offer to help, because this is the way that you build your writing community, right? And you don't ever necessarily have to ask them to beta for you again. So if it didn't work out, cool, awesome. Thank you so much. And then you just never ask them to beta for you again. That's fine. Perfectly normal, happens all the time. I said it in the last video, but finding good beta readers is a bit like dating, right? Sometimes you just have to kiss a few frogs before you find your princesses and your princes. So just keep going, don't give up, and you will eventually find your really solid circle. So 10 years into this, I have about, I'm going to say like 7 or 8 people that I continually have beta read for me. And I ask them at different phases. I have my people that I like for early reads. I have my people I like for later reads, because they all have their own skills and their own set of eyes for what they're looking for, right? So it really allows me to focus on different aspects of my manuscript. And I love tapping into their expertise to help make my manuscripts better. So you'll get there. Like again, it's about building that community. It's so, so important. All right. Our final suggestion, this is the last one, I promise, is that when you do get all of your feedback, say you have 3 people, right? Is to write your own edit letter for yourself. So you're going to take all of that feedback, you're going to process it, and you're going to create your own plan for how you want to tackle revision. So you're going to write your own edit letter. This is really just a great way to think critically about all the feedback and be really cognizant of how you're going to put it into action, what's important to you, what's not as important. It really helps you to just focus on the elements that you want to tackle. So when I write my self-edit letters, I tend to work from the element that needs the biggest change down to the element that requires the least change, because that's how my brain works. And I want to do the big structural changes first before I get into some of those more nuanced, tiny little things that my beta readers are like, maybe like you should just change this one little detail. And that's important to me. So I always do this, and I'll end up, with like a 6-page document that is now my revision plan that I can keep going back to, because now I've focused all of the information into one location. And it really also allows me to streamline the time that I have to dedicate to revisions, because I'm always like, it's where I'm always focused on. So I'm like, oh yeah, I've done everything on page 1. Now I'm on page 2 and I can go through it. Because there are a lot of things happening in the world, and being an adult means that you have a lot of outside responsibilities. So being able to really streamline that time into your editing and know exactly what you're doing is going to be invaluable to you. Okay, Scribblers. I hope that this video has helped you tackle the process of receiving feedback and made you just think about some of the complexities that go along with that. And you've got to have that awareness of what your vision of the story is, what you're feeling. I didn't say this earlier, but if you're having a really bad day and that's when your feedback comes in, maybe don't read it. It could be really great feedback, but you're going to really focus in on anything that is not so great, or anything that says, hey, I really think it needs like a big amount of work here. And it might emphasize that. So maybe wait until the next day, like have a sleep, wake up, go to the coffee shop, get yourself your beautiful drink, and then approach it. Because thinking about where you are in your own emotional state in that moment is also really important. All right. Remember, take your time, process, accept all the feedback in good faith, and make sure you're giving feedback in good faith. Writing is not a competition. We're always going to be stronger together. So make sure we're building each other up. Don't forget that the Scribblers Den offers developmental edits. We'll send you a detailed edit letter of what you can level up in your writing. And that also includes a 45-minute Zoom call consult afterwards, so we can process together and you can ask all your questions and really do a little bit of brainstorming. Or if you are about to embark on your revision process because you've got fantastic beta feedback, but you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, we have a fantastic self-paced class that breaks this monumental task into manageable chunks. So be sure to check out both our editorials options and our revision class. The links are down below, so do that. That's it for now, Scribblers. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you get notifications when we have new videos, and we'll see you next time. Happy writing!